This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening and thank you for being with us tonight. Brittany is away. A Winnipeg mom whose son was brutally attacked with a machete is calling for changes to Manitoba's Victim Services program. She says she faced a long wait trying to get information on the program and supports. And as the CBC's Mike Arsenault reports, the province says it is looking into the case.
A Winnipeg mother feels left in the dark due to a lack of communication from a provincial support program. Her son was attacked with a machete, and although he qualifies for victim services, she hasn't heard from the program in almost a month, and the bills are piling up.
We sent it in as quick as we could and hand-delivered them just to make sure that everything was done properly.
Megan Smart didn't waste any time filling out paperwork and applying for the Compensation for Victims of Crime program in Manitoba. Her 15-year-old son was the victim of a brutal assault in August. She applied while he was in the hospital, but she hasn't heard a thing since.
There's just no response. It's not even a yes or no, or here's the things we can help with. You can go forward and get more receipts or something. It's just complete silence.
Smart says her son had injuries from head to toe. He got stitches, staples, and was worked on by 3 different teams of surgeons. She had to buy a new bed and a bath chair for him so he could recover at home.
It just feels disrespectful, and you're already going through the worst time of your life. You know, trying to even keep your own mind straight and on top of everything, and just to find that there's no real support is really disappointing.
Manitoba's Minister of Justice, Matt Wiebe, says his government is looking into how they can speed up the process.
Already we've taken the steps to double the number of adjudicators from 3 to 6 in the last 6 months, and we're also reviewing how can we make the application form more simplified and just make it easier for families.
Wiebe says this attack played a role in prompting his government to introduce legislation that restricts access to machetes in Manitoba. Smart believes there are still some gaps in the system and wants to make sure other victims aren't left waiting for help. After CBC reached out to the province and Victim Services, the program got back to Smart and says they'll be able to cover most of her expenses. She says the program apologized for taking so long. Smart says she's just relieved to finally have some answers after being in limbo for almost a month. Mike Arsenault, CBC News, Winnipeg.
2 Winnipeg parents have been arrested after police say their baby daughter was taken to hospital suffering multiple injuries. Police say the baby, who was under the age of 1, was unresponsive when a man and woman took her to hospital in September. Investigators determined the infant's multiple injuries were from abuse and malnutrition. The baby survived and is now in stable condition. The province's advocate for children and youth, Sherry Gott, says her office is investigating.
It's a child that's relies on their parents to be caring for them completely, at the hands of the caregiver. And I hope that this child will stabilize and thrive.
A 29-year-old woman and 33-year-old man have now been charged for failing to provide the necessities of life. The man has also been charged with aggravated assault. A Portage La Prairie man who pleaded guilty to second-degree murder was back in court today for his sentencing. Travis McLeod killed his partner and their 2 children before setting their house on fire. A warning, this story does contain details that some might find disturbing. Mike Arsenault has the story.
52-year-old Travis McLeod stared at the ground while he waited to be sentenced for the murders of his common-law partner and their 2 young children. On April 10, 2022, McLeod murdered 32-year-old Chantel Murphy, their 6-year-old daughter Isabella Murphy, and their 3-year-old son Mason Murphy. During the sentencing, Crown Attorney Dana Koyaguzzi revisited the events of that night. On April 10th at 10:40 a.m., Mr. McLeod found a large metal bar, went upstairs to his children's bedroom where they slept, and viciously bludgeoned them. When Chantel awoke to the commotion, he turned his attention to her and attacked her with the same metal bar. After the murders, McLeod set the house on fire. Court heard McLeod had a history of addiction and violence. He had 4 domestic assaults on his record dating back to 1999 and had been hospitalized for mental health issues in the past. The family of the victims wiped away tears as they waited for the sentence to be handed down. Court heard impact statements from Tammy St. Jean and Patrick Murphy, the parents and grandparents of the 3 deceased. I will never get the opportunity to hug and hold my daughter or grandchildren, hear their laughter, see them smile, or get the opportunity to celebrate all of life's milestones with them. They had so much to look forward to. It's always been my belief and my experience that a father's job is to love and protect his family from the dangers of the world. I will never understand how you, Travis, went from being a father that should have protected his family to being the monstrous thing that they needed protection from. In court, McLeod showed remorse for his crimes, saying, "I would like to apologize for my actions that ended the lives of 3 people I loved very much. There isn't a day I don't think of them, and I wish I could go back and had gotten help." Court of King's Bench Justice Chris Martin called this case one of the worst he's dealt with in his 16 years on the bench. He sentenced McLeod to life in prison with no parole eligibility for 16 years. Mike Arsenault, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The Federal Court of Canada has dismissed a request to overturn the most recent election at Peguis First Nation. CBC's Bartley Kevis reports.
Woo!
That's Peguis First Nation councillor Kelvin Wilson offering his reaction to a decision by Justice Anne-Marie MacDonald. She declined a request by former Peguis chief Glenn Hudson to set aside the results of the band's election in 2023. In that election, Stan Bird defeated Hudson by 440 votes. Bird said he welcomes the court's decision.
It's good news for us as a council and good news for the community.
But this was no vindication for Stan Bird. Justice MacDonald also concluded there was interference at an advance poll in that election. She said Bird and Wilson were part of a group that obstructed the operations of the elections officer. That resulted in the cancellation of 178 votes. MacDonald called Bird and Wilson's actions disruptive, misguided, and close to the line. Wilson says he was just trying to prevent the ballot box from leaving Peguis.
The way I seen it, I wasn't just taking a risk for myself. I was taking a risk for the whole community.
MacDonald nonetheless concluded the interference at the advance poll did not affect the overall vote. Overturning the result, she said, would disenfranchise everyone who voted at Peguis. Hudson called that unacceptable.
These types of findings would certainly not be acceptable in a non-First Nation community. Like if that happened in the city of Winnipeg, Tuxedo, people will be crying foul, and there would have been a re-election.
Hudson said he doesn't know if he'll appeal or whether he will run in the next Peguis election. Bartley Kevis, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Winnipeggers are starting to take advantage of a new way to dispose of their compost. Compost Winnipeg began collecting household organic waste from 15 sites on October the 15th. In just over a week, it has collected 1,600 kilograms so far. The city launched the service as an interim step toward a citywide curbside compost program that is roughly slated to start in 2030. All right, well, a mix of sun and clouds today across much of the province. Not a terrible day out there, actually. It was nice without so much wind. Let's get a first check on our weather with my friend Colette Kennedy.
Yeah, thanks, Riley. Right? You know, nothing to complain about. Let's not think about the past and what things were like a few days back when we had temperatures, 10 and 15 degrees above seasonal. Hey, from this morning, -3, that's seasonal for Winnipeg. -4 for Thompson, a little cooler like that, and Brandon as well. -4, slightly milder this morning into northwestern Ontario before that cold front was working its way through. And then the afternoon temperatures, 11 for Winnipeg. We had lots of double digits. In fact, you can contrast that with Churchill, though, at 1 degree, the temperature this afternoon. And just having a look at what's going on tonight, we'll actually see some nice clear skies through the Red River Valley, so 2 degrees as we go through the overnight hours, milder than last night. For tomorrow morning, be aware the winds will be kicking up a little bit, especially blustery in the morning hours, but still some gusty winds as we go into the afternoon, and we will have a very nice high of 9 degrees. I think there'll be a little bit of a warm up coming, though, in our future. I'll talk about that when I come back.
All right, thanks so much, Colette. Construction work to open Portage in Maine to pedestrians has started, and no surprise, it is causing traffic delays for motorists. City Councillor and Public Works Chair Janice Lukes spoke with CBC's Jim Agapito to find out what drivers can expect at the intersection in the coming months.
So right now what's happening is the contractor is putting in conduits. So what are conduits? They're tubes of pipe that will have electrical in them for the new lighting system.
And how long do we expect some of these delays to stay till?
This is the start of a very interesting experience from now till the end of June. If you can avoid Portage and Main for the next 6 months, I'd highly recommend avoiding it. There will be construction going on here. The construction will be intense. It will be intense because we're removing these big barriers. We're doing design and realignment to sidewalks and to lanes. You open up a road, there's a lot of surprises when you open up a road. Maybe it's water and waste that has to come. Maybe it's hydro, maybe it's fiber optics. We have a very short window of time. We have to get this done. There's a lot of demands. So it's not pleasant. I get it. It's not pleasant, but I think it will make a huge difference.
Still ahead, water and sewer rates could be going up in Winnipeg over the next few years as the city looks for ways to pay for big budget projects. Now, some city councillors are calling for changes as to how all of those fees are spent. Our City Hall reporter Cameron McLean has the latest on that story, and we have more ahead for you after the break. We're back right after this.
Winnipeggers could pay significantly higher water and sewer rates over the next few years. A rate report is expected later this year as the city looks for ways to pay for a number of big budget water and sewer projects. Today, some city councillors called on the city to stop taking tens of millions of dollars out of the Water and Waste Department's budget every year. It's called the Water and Waste Dividend, which uses money from water and sewer rates to pay for general operations. From 2011 to 2019, it rose from 8% to 12% of the department's revenue. Mayor Scott Gillingham, in his former role as finance chair, lowered it to 11% and eventually planned to phase it out completely. But those plans were put on hold after the COVID-19 pandemic. Today at City Hall, Councillor Brian Mays raised a motion calling for a review of the policy.
There's $40 million a year that we could be putting toward these water and sewer projects that's being collected from water and sewer ratepayers.
Major projects include upgrades to the North End sewage treatment plant, currently pegged at $3 billion, and replacing the city's combined sewers at an estimated cost of more than $2 billion. Councillor Russ Wyatt supported Mays' motion.
It was a backdoor tax increase, and I think that's why the public does not like it. And they see it for what it is, right? Better to be upfront about the challenges facing our city and what our taxes need to be.
Mayor Scott Gillingham says he's open to discussing the dividend, but denied there is anything hidden about it.
We have it in our budget every year. We tell people, here's the amount, here's the percentage, and here's the amount. When you hide something, you don't show it. You try to keep it secret. We don't keep it secret. We say it's 11% right now. It's about $40 million. It's open in plain sight, and we're very public about it.
Mays' motion will go before the Water and Waste Committee at its next meeting. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The Manitoba government is once again extending its retail theft initiative. It was supposed to end this month, but the program will now continue through the holiday season. The province is also funding 12 new provincially funded police officers to begin patrols next month as part of this program. This is on top of the overtime the province had already been funding for police. Officers have been focused on the Exchange District, Osborne Village, and the West End, but have also been deployed to other areas of the city. Now, that announcement comes as we hear the results of a new survey that shows half of Manitoba businesses have been victims of crime. The Canadian Federation of Independent Business says 52% report they've been victims of crime, up 11% over last year. CBC's Zabina Ahmed has more.
Just king size.
Syed Mahmood has run this grocery store on Ellis Avenue for nearly 10 years. He bought it after immigrating from Iran and has faced many unexpected setbacks.
He jump on the counter and take a cash register, and I catch them and make a fighting with them and call to the police.
He's paid thousands for new windows and has been assaulted.
And second time that somebody came here with a big pill and take many things, many items, put in the pill, and they want try to get out, and I catch them and broken my glasses. Okay. Do you like candy?
Yes.
But he says crime started to go down when he started focusing on building relationships with the community.
I put some candy on the counter, and when they came in the store, I make a smile. When they was short to buy something short like $2, $3, I helped them.
Lux Barbecue Company is also dealing with rampant theft and 4 recent break-ins. Manager Evan Fogg says he feels frustrated and helpless.
One of our businesses, we actually had somebody drove a stolen truck through a garage door to break into the business. And then we've had our store on Kenniston Boulevard, we had somebody smash the window and break in.
According to the Canadian Federation of Independent Business survey, theft and vandalism are the most common types of crime, leading some small business owners to take measures into their own hands.
Median business spent $5,000 to up their security measures or to hire security guards, and they've been forced to make changes to their business as well. They've been forced to either keep their doors locked during the day, change their opening hours, which in many cases can, deter customers and make it challenging to bring in the same level of revenues.
Brianna Solberg says many don't call police because of slow response times, and they don't make insurance claims because their premiums will go up. But the emotional toll is often what costs the most. Zubina Ahmed, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Mounties say they shot a 39-year-old man while he was fleeing with a stolen vehicle. Officers spotted the vehicle on Highway 6 near Penematang First Nation after they say it was involved in a series of crimes in Thompson overnight. Police say the car pulled over after a brief chase and a suspect got out with a gun and tried to steal a different car. That's when police shot him before he got into the second car and drove off. Police say the man was arrested a short while later and sustained serious injuries. The independent investigation unit has now taken over. All right, let's get back to meteorologist Colette Kennedy now with a full check on our forecast.
Yeah, thanks, Riley. I mean, we don't have any really strong systems or anything to worry about, but a little bit of energy here and there. And you can see that showing up on the satellite and radar imagery. So a little bit of shower activity. Now, some of this is virga. It's not actually reaching the ground, drying up before it gets there. But through the Inner Lakes region, there are certainly some showers, seeing that kind of around Dauphin to Gimli through that region, Nipawin. Just kind of western Brandon might have the stray shower making its way in. But generally not a lot of moisture there to work with. So we kind of had the one cold front going through and then another trough that's sort of following behind with that one passing through the province. So there goes that cold front, all right. Heavier rains around the center of that low headed towards the Great Lakes region, dropping in another trough here. So another little bit of energy, and through tomorrow morning, a few of those showers kind of hanging on along that trough line. But further south through the Red River Valley towards Western Man, we're talking about clear skies and some very nice conditions through the day on Friday. So plenty to look forward to as high pressure builds in and really helps dig things out. Now then, as we look ahead and we get into Saturday, I do want to show you there's a cold front that wants to come through. It'll have an impact with some extra cloud cover central and north and start to drive the winds more so though as we get into Monday, as we have a warm front that will be heading our way. So that's kind of your indication of when it'll be the beginning of next week that we'll start to see things warming up. I'll show you here in the 7-day in just a moment. I do want to point out, though, some blustery winds. I mean, we can take it, but some winds gusting at times perhaps close to or just over 50 kilometers an hour in the morning. And after that, the gusts into the afternoon, northwesterly flow, but coming in more so around 20 to 40 kilometers an hour. So checking out the sunshine for tomorrow and that high of 9 degrees. Saturday, I do have that cloud cover along that front, but I really think the timing's going to be pretty good, that it's sort of Saturday night into Sunday morning. So you'll notice I haven't put much cloud cover in here. Saturday 10, Sunday 13. Just be aware, Saturday will be quite a cool start, and then there's that warm up. We'll get into some stronger southwesterly winds as we're headed into Monday, so it will be breezy, but we'll see that temperature popping up. It looks like at least into those mid-teens before it cools down again after that, Riley.
All right, thank you so much, Colette. Remember, you can find news updated anytime you like at cbc.ca/Manitoba or on the CBC News app. We are taking another break. We have more ahead for you when we come back. Stay with us. We're back just after this. The federal government has announced a major cut to immigration in this country. It is reducing permanent immigration levels by at least 20%. Rafi Boudjikanian looks at what's behind the Liberal move and the reaction to it.
Surrounded by some of his own MPs from immigrant communities, the Prime Minister offered a mea culpa, along with the biggest cut to immigration his government has ever implemented.
As we emerged from the pandemic, between addressing labor needs and maintaining population growth, we didn't get the balance quite right. With the plan we're announcing today, along with previously announced measures, we're making our immigration system work better.
Instead of the previously announced 500,000 permanent residents expected to be admitted into Canada next year, Ottawa will allow 395,000 in. It will cut to 380,000 the following year and 365,000 by 2027. Recent national polling shows Canadian attitudes toward immigration have soured as the country goes through a housing crisis, and there is little consensus on Parliament Hill.
We will restore the best immigration system in the world. We will stop the illegal arrival of false refugee claimants.
People come to Canada with the hope that they can build a good life, but that is not what's going on right now. People hope that they can get a good job, find a home that they can afford.
The federal government counters today's cuts mean it will have 670,000 fewer housing units to build in the next 3 years. For some observers, that's only a start to solve the housing problem.
This is not a vacation for policymakers in the federal government, because I think it certainly demands the federal government to work with their provincial and local counterparts. Our welcome mat has frayed a little bit, and I think this gives us time to reweave it.
Though some advocates are concerned this move encourages further fraying.
It's scapegoating migrants for the housing and affordability crisis. As we heard, they are implementing basically conservative-like policies in an attempt to recover in the polls.
The Immigration Department says these cuts are temporary, but has not provided which benchmarks it will look at when the time comes to reverse them. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
Well, it seems a CBC Go Public investigation that we brought you earlier this week has struck a chord with people upset over a price hike by Rogers and a contract clause they say is misleading. Well, now a Rogers employee is speaking out too. Erica Johnson first broke this story and has more now on the new complaints and the push for accountability.
Carol Pickering is among a flood of Rogers customers contacting Go Public after our story about a price hike to TV services.
This is not what I was expecting.
When she called Rogers, she learned language in the service agreement allows the company to increase charges, even though she thought she had a guaranteed monthly price.
I was pretty miffed that I wasn't told about that at the beginning.
Turns out a clause says price guarantees do not apply to rental equipment like TV boxes. In email after email, Rogers customers tell Go Public it's not fair, writing, "When you are retired and on a fixed income, every dollar in your pocket counts. It's a weasel way of doing business. They are acting in bad faith." And now a Rogers call center employee is speaking out, saying he's been told not to give customer refunds, to point to the clause in their contract instead. CBC News isn't using his name because he fears being fired. In an interview, he said, "It sucks. I deal with a lot of retirees and elderly people who say, I budgeted this and now it's going up." This NDP MP says telcos like Rogers, Bell and TELUS shouldn't be allowed to move the goalposts after customers agree to a monthly price. And he says the federal industry minister needs to clamp down.
He has the capability to connect to Rogers and tell them to stop abusing Canadian consumers.
As for Rogers, a spokesperson says most of its TV customers are not impacted by the price increase, that customers can use our free TV app without needing extra boxes and have 10 days to cancel a contract. The NDP's Brian Massey sits on the Standing Committee on Industry and Technology. He's urging the committee to request an appearance by Rogers' CEO to explain how he plans to fix the situation. Erica Johnson, CBC News, Vancouver.
We have some new details tonight about the death of a teenage Walmart employee last weekend in Halifax. A Sikh organization in the Maritimes has identified the victim as 19-year-old Gursimran Kaur. They told the Canadian press it was her mother who discovered the teen's body inside a large walk-in oven at the store's bakery. Police said they are still investigating the cause of death. The Sikh organization said the mother and daughter came to Canada from India a couple of years ago and both worked at the Walmart. To Guelph, Ontario now, where police have a butter problem. That's right, a butter problem. Thieves keep raiding store shelves there and walking away with hundreds of dollars worth of the expensive kitchen staple. Jamie Strachan now on this unusual crime and where all of that butter could be going.
This Guelph grocery store, the scene of a butter heist that sounds more like a bank robbery.
There was a white sedan that was seen at the back of the business. They loaded the butter in and away they went.
Nearly $1,000 worth of butter melted away into thin air, stolen by two men.
It's certainly unusual, but there is we believe an organized crime aspect to it.
That crime is now the talk of the city.
I can't imagine why they're stealing butter.
What are they going to do with that much butter?
They've got a recipe, I'm sure.
But there's more to this case. The robbery at this store was not a one-off. It turns out in Guelph there's been a butter crime wave. 7 such thefts in the last year. It's not clear if the heists are connected, but police do say most of the butter ends up on the black market or on resale websites, often at a discount.
It's particularly easy to find a buyer, to find someone who actually is interested in buying butter like that.
As a stolen food, it's quite practical.
For thieves, when it comes to butter, is that you can actually keep butter for a very long time. You can freeze it.
We've got 2 delicious cookies for you.
Jordan Foster gets it.
Now I'm fortunate if I can pick up butter for around $6 a pound. So near doubled in the last few years. Literally liquid gold.
Butter is the backbone of her cookie business. She has no interest in going to the black market, but understands why some would.
I could see it would be an interest to stock up, especially if you are someone that leverages or uses butter in a lot of your recipes.
As for the investigation,
there's no serial number on butter, I don't think. There's no VIN, that kind of thing. So it's a little harder to track it down.
All of it, a recipe for a tough solve. Jamie Strachan, CBC News, Guelph.
An important scientific collection of fungi is at risk of leaving Canada for good. Funding issues may close the Toronto facility, and as Thomas Dagler explains, that could complicate the development of medical breakthroughs.
We'll have a fresh culture of the cantaloupe strain.
As far as fungus goes, this one is famous. A sample taken from a moldy cantaloupe that yielded a strain of penicillin, saving countless lives in the Second World War. A breakthrough often associated with the Nobel Prize winner Alexander Fleming. That living fungus is one of a staggering 15,000 strains kept here at a University of Toronto facility that now faces an uncertain future.
The costs to operate the biobank are probably around $120,000 a year. We've reached a point now where it doesn't look possible to maintain this biobank resource in Canada.
Federal grants dried up years ago, and Director James Scott says he's struggled to scrape together funding ever since.
Preserved this way, many fungi can last probably forever.
Now, within months, North America's biggest collection of its kind could be broken up with fungi sent to Europe or China. A troubling prospect for scientists across this country.
Losing this huge collection is going to, the impact cannot be overstated.
Imagine that all of Shakespeare's works were suddenly to disappear.
Importing living fungi for research can prove time-consuming and costly. Consider the deadly anthrax-laced envelopes mailed to U.S. addresses after 9/11. When Canada sought to produce a vaccine, Scott says the U.S. refused to export that dangerous strain. And all of this, he says, can't be replaced.
There's no way that you can go back in time and collect those strains at the time they were collected.
Scott even built a board game to raise money. and never heard back from the Ontario government after sending this letter warning we have exhausted all avenues of funding. A century of research soon lost for good. Thomas Daigle, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, turning our attention overseas now, Israeli airstrikes today hit another Gaza school sheltering civilians. Officials say 17 people were killed. It happened in central Gaza. As in previous school attacks, Israel maintained the compound was now a Hamas post. A nearby district witnessed a staggering crush of people seeking bread at a bakery. And in the north, where thousands have fled, emergency services are suspended. Visiting Qatar today, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said the ceasefire and hostage negotiations will resume soon. Israel later announced a delegation will visit Qatar on Sunday. Israeli airstrikes also continue in Lebanon, with Beirut seeing some of the most intense since the fighting with Hezbollah began. Lebanese officials say 6 buildings were destroyed after a wave of airstrikes hit Beirut's southern suburbs overnight. Israel says the area is a Hezbollah stronghold. 70 countries and 15 organizations at a conference in Paris today pledged $1 billion for Lebanon. Most of that money is aimed at helping the more than 1 million people displaced by fighting. $270 million will go to Lebanon's army, seen as key in cementing long-term peace. Tenants of a Toronto apartment building will square off with their landlord in court next week. More on that next. Tenants of a Toronto apartment building will square off with their landlord in court next week. At issue is a protest the tenants staged and the landlord's response, which was a defamation suit. The CBC's Zach Dubinsky has the story.
Signs of solidarity. Across Canada, tenants are coming together, protesting rent evictions, poor living conditions, and rent hikes. Now, some landlords are firing back with a bold move to make them stop.
You see that they're going to sue us because of the protest. We were shocked.
70-year-old Mohammed Nizam lives in Toronto.
No more harassment! No more harassment!
He and his neighbors resorted to protesting at their landlord's cheesemaking business last year after they say their concerns were ignored.
The tenant defendants have embarked.
2 months later, they were hit with a lawsuit. The landlord, Anne DeMello, claimed $200,000 in damages, said the protesters hurt her and her business's reputations and harassed her. Nizam says she's just trying to shut them up.
We didn't harm anybody, we didn't damage their business. What she wants is to silence us.
Lawyer Danica So represents Nizam and the other tenants. She says their landlord's legal move tells a bigger story.
It's definitely an escalation in the tools that landlords have at their disposal to try and stop tenants from engaging in their expressive rights. And so where that happens, landlords, I think, are more motivated to resort to something like a lawsuit.
CBC News found several similar lawsuits across Canada in the last 3 years, landlords claiming that protesting tenants defamed them. Experts say the lawsuits reveal another aspect of the housing crisis.
It's more than a mismatch between supply and demand. What we have here is a conflict between two groups.
Nizam says the legal battle has caused him stress, but he has no intention of giving up.
It is too sad why landlord is doing this, but we are not going to be silent. We will fight for our right.
CBC News reached out to Nizam's landlord. In a statement, Anne DeMello said numerous efforts have been made to work with the tenants, but they still resort to divisive tactics. The case will be in court next week. Zach Dubinsky, CBC News, Toronto.
At least 26 people are dead in the Philippines after a tropical storm brought a month's worth of rain to the country's north in a day. It made landfall on the country's most populous island, where flooding forced more than 150,000 people to flee their homes. Schools and offices across the country are closed, and dozens of flights have been canceled. The storm is moving toward the South China Sea with winds of up to 95 kilometers an hour. Meantime, tropical cyclone Dana has made landfall in eastern India. It was already pounding parts of the coast with heavy rain and strong winds. Evacuation orders are in place for low-lying areas. Several airports have suspended flights, schools are closed, and fishermen have been told not to go to sea. And that leads us to a check on our full Manitoba weather forecast now with meteorologist Colette Kennedy.
Yeah, it's always nice, rather, to end the week on a high note, and that's how it's looking, at least in terms of our sky conditions. A lot of sunshine coming our way. Just kind of a recap of where at this time of year we should be in terms of temperatures, or at least what's seasonal. So a high around 7, normal low -3, just like we were this morning. And by the way, your sunrise for tomorrow morning, that sun up at 8:07. So yeah, it's a little dark before that. I want to show you these upper level winds, and I am going to talk locally about what's going on, but I do have to point out, just in Atlantic Canada, yeah, this is Oscar, the remnants of Hurricane Oscar coming up towards Atlantic Canada. Some of the heaviest rains will be kind of central and eastern Newfoundland. Some areas may see over 120 millimeters of rain and winds gusting up to close to 100 km. So a lot going on over the next 24 hours there. And then we can compare that to what we're seeing, which is just the kind of first cold front moving out. And then we have that little trough coming in behind. It's allowed some of the cooler air to move in. But in terms of moisture or rainfalls, I mean, it's pretty moisture starved here. So we're looking at 5-6 millimeters perhaps. We'll see kind of towards eastern Man to about 1 millimeter stretching across the border there into Red Lake. So your forecast for tonight, looking at some of these readings, in many cases a little milder than it was this morning, but we have enough cool air and a little bit of moisture that, yeah, a touch of light snow, yes, some flurries to light snow Thompson could even get a bit of a mix, a little freezing rain potential there. To Dooley Lake could see perhaps a little bit of freezing rain there as well, mixing in. So yeah, we're getting to that time of year. We're going to have more and more days like this. Along that trough line there are the showers I mentioned, and just going on through the day, checking out our temperatures. Sure, it's going to be harder to find double digits tomorrow, but still, we're going to have some nice conditions. All right, my favorite part of the show, because I get to introduce you to Ollie. And this was sent to us courtesy of Teresa. Guess how old Ollie is? I'll give you a hint. Yes, Ollie is 3. What a cutie patootie. And just checking out that forecast for you then in terms of your dog walking forecast. I don't see any yellow or red paws. I see green lights go. Just keeping in mind that 8 a.m., yeah, the sun rising at 8:07. So depending what time you get out the door there, a little bit breezy in those morning hours too. So happy to see Ollie there. Makes my day, Riley.
3 and thriving. Thanks so much, Colette. Well, 2 Asian Canadians who wrote editorials about being Asian in Manitoba didn't expect the strong reaction they received. The pieces were posted on CBC Manitoba's website. Lindsay Wong and Jenny Hejun-Wills decided to sit down together and talk it out. And they invited CBC Manitoba to record their conversation. Here now is part of that discussion.
It's like, it's unstoppable.
I know. I just got one, I think, from someone who was a student who just wrote me about their whole life story.
Oh my God.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Wong. I'm the author of The Woo Woo. And I wrote a first-person piece in May about moving from Vancouver to Winnipeg. Vancouver has a predominantly Asian population, and so when I moved here, I was really shocked by some of the experiences that I had as a non-white person.
And I'm Jenny Hejun-Wills. I wrote Older Sister, Not Necessarily Related. I'm a Korean-Canadian adoptee. I also wrote a first-person piece for CBC about being Asian in Winnipeg, in Manitoba, and I know we sort of communicated and bonded over our experiences, mostly in terms of the responses to those pieces.
Yeah, I come from a creative writing background where readers usually tell you how much they love your work, right? They don't tell you that it is your fault for something happening. And when the piece came out, I think I got 30, 40 emails just an hour right after. And then I kept getting messages and DMs from people. I think, Jenny, we were both invited to a farm. Someone wanted to be friends with us, and they sympathized with our situation. But the piece wasn't about friendship. It really wasn't about meeting new people.
And I think, where that invitation, kind as it is, kind of misses the mark.
Yeah, because friendship doesn't necessarily mean that the racism is fixed, right? We're not saying that the people are unfriendly or unwelcoming. We're saying that racism is part of a societal problem.
In my case, I often receive messages from adoptive parents who say, but your life turned out okay, right? Or, but it wasn't so bad, or, but would you have rather have been, suffering away in an orphanage overseas, which is in and of itself a strange colonial narrative or myth.
It's just part of the narrative, I guess, that they want you to feel grateful.
Yeah. And absolutely, as an adopted person, this narrative of being grateful and being beholden is almost like part of my identity. And so it takes a lot to resist that.
I've even had people of color tell me that I'm imagining these experiences that I've had. This other email says, "Hello, Lindsay. I read your CBC piece about racism in Winnipeg. I'm also full-blooded Asian, Japanese, born and raised in Winnipeg, but moved to Vancouver in 1979. And they talk about saying that it doesn't exist. And they tell me that I returned to Winnipeg last fall for 5 days after more than 20 years of absence to attend a high school reunion, but didn't experience one incident of racism, yet I look just like you." It's almost like they want to change my mind, right? They want me to email them back and say, "You're right, actually, this didn't happen."
Yeah. Well, that's like gaslighting to begin with, to tell you that something is in your head that's, that you're feeling in real life.
I'm wondering, like, what are some ways that people could address these issues?
The very fact that folks were reading these pieces, I think, is an excellent first step. Like, a possible outcome would be like talking about how this is just like the beginning of this thread of the conversation, like that this isn't like a one-off event, like to take all of these opportunities and continue the discussion with or without other people involved, but like for us to be having these conversations even amongst ourselves.
All right, Colette is back with one last check on our 7-day forecast when we come back. And I will note that Halloween is now on that 7-day forecast next Thursday, where you might see some of these guys. We're back in just a moment. Stay with us.
Well, we've got a beautiful Friday on tap in terms of all kinds of sunshine to go around through the Red River Valley. Temperatures actually a little bit above seasonal, but perhaps a little cool. I mean, if you're considering what we had back on Monday or Sunday with the 20s in there, 20, 21, right? So 9 degrees the high for tomorrow. Saturday into Sunday, some cloud cover kind of Saturday night into Sunday morning. Otherwise, a good deal of sunshine. A cool start, though, Saturday morning with that -4. And we are going to see a warm up coming our way. It may only last a day or two. Sunday into Monday, those winds are going to pick up from the southwest. And as they do, looking for a very comfortable high temperature of 16 degrees. So that'll make that Monday maybe a little bit easier to take after ending the weekend. Riley?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Colette. So, do you think those oinks sound happy or sad? Well, European scientists have developed an AI algorithm that can find out. The goal is to help farmers improve animal welfare by tracking negative emotions in pigs. Researchers used sounds from thousands of pigs and found the short grunts are positive, while the long ones can signal discomfort. Well, our next story brings us to Newfoundland's Avalon Peninsula, where one employee has been punching the clock every day at a small town library. The town's smallest and most temperamental staff member is our daily lift.
She's the town mouser. She's an employee. She's the town mouser, yes. She lives here at the library in the town.
And what roles does she hold here? What are her many job titles?
To make people smile, to give loves, to catch mice, to chase kids.
And so you brought her in for a mouse problem. Has that been working out?
Great. No mice whatsoever.
Did she ever bring one to you?
She's got one that we've known of here, but she didn't bring it to me.
And what's her personality like? Describe who Oreo is.
Oreo's very playful at times. She's very temperamental at times.
What do you mean by that?
She's really lazy too at times. She sleeps most of the day.
What do you mean by temperamental?
Sometimes she wants loves and sometimes she doesn't.
Temperamental kind of sounds like me. I do know of a couple of places that could use a good mouser right now, in case you're wondering. And that is our program for this Thursday. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow.